Hi everybody. I wanted to do another YouTube video. I work almost full time, so it takes a little time for me to find the time to create another YouTube video, but I wanted to create a new YouTube video for my channel, and I wanted to start building more of a following and helping more people who are suffering from depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, particularly from childhood trauma and things like that. And I just wanted to share a personal experience today because I feel like if there's any way that a personal experience, even if it's incredibly painful, can help somebody, then I'm willing to do that. It's scary to be vulnerable. And, you have to be careful who you're vulnerable around. And the thing is I've been trying to have a relationship with certain people in my life that are very, very close to me for a long time. And I've tried to tell them what I need, and I've tried to tell them certain things that they do that hurts me. And every time I call them on the phone, they act like everything's okay. And I try to talk to them, and they sweep it under the rug and they deny it. And this is something that's been going on since my childhood, and it's extremely hurtful. And it's a lot of a lot of the damage that's been done to me. I'm not trying to play a blame game. I'm trying to get to the other side of my healing so that I can find some peace and forgiveness. And let me tell you, it is a lot easier to forgive somebody when they either admit in some way that they hurt you, or they acknowledge you in some way and the validity of your feelings, or if something called karma or the golden rule or whatever you want to call it, God's justice is what I call it, hits them in the butt. You don't do anything about it. You don't necessarily pray for something bad to happen, but something just comes back and bites them in the butt. I've seen it happen. I've seen people do things to me and that happened. And I hate to admit it, but there's a sense of satisfaction in that. It's easier to forgive them because you feel like justice has been served and you can move on with your life because you've seen the story come full circle. Well, what do you do if the person's not acknowledging it? Maybe they're even carrying on with their life, prosperous and happy, and you're stuck with the suffering, and you're paying the bill for the things that they did to you. And how do you work through that if you have complex depression and anxiety and anger? How do you forgive that person or those people when they refuse to acknowledge anything they did to you? They may even still be doing that to you on some other level, or just the same way that they were before. And maybe you're tied to them in some way where you can't just cut ties. Maybe you're married to them. Maybe you live with them. Maybe they're an immediate family member. And so it's easier said than done to cut ties with these people, especially if there are intersecting relationships involved and it affects other people. Let me tell you something. You have to pray about that, and you have to come to a decision in your own heart about that, based on what God tells you to do. And no matter what they do, and even if it's 5 times as hard, you have to work through that crap. Even if they won't let it off the hook for you by acknowledging what they did, forgiving them is the best revenge you could ever get for them. God says, "Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord." It's not our place to go after somebody and get vengeance. However, if you have to go no contact with somebody because they keep hurting you again and again and again and again, and you can't have a relationship that's even a semblance of functional, if they continue to neglect, overlook, mistreat, abuse, or manipulate and control you, you need to get away from that. People will tell you that it is not Christ-like to cut off a relationship with an immediate family member. And people will tell you that it is not Christian to set boundaries with people. There are actually people out there that tell you that. I was told that growing up in so many words. And what I've learned is that it's actually just the opposite. You didn't see Jesus letting people abuse him until it was time for him to do what he needed to do to save us from our sins. Yes, Jesus turned the other cheek, but it was for a specific reason. What I'm saying is that he set boundaries with the crowd. He didn't let them suck him dry. He went to a quiet place and he rested. So you have to look at the context of the situation. And if you're in a situation where your mental health is completely drained and you've done everything you can to nurture yourself, take care of yourself, try to have a relationship with that person, try to get some kind of understanding, and you cannot reason with that person, and it just continues to open an old wound again and again and again and again, you've got to find some space. You need to find space and time to heal. And if that takes 30 years, 40 years, the rest of your life, the rest of that person's life, you have to give yourself that gift and set a boundary. I'm not saying going no contact is right for everybody. What I'm saying is that for a lot of people, it is the right thing to do. And sometimes you know that it's a taboo thing to do in your family and nobody's done it before. But if that's what you have to do, then you have to do that. And there's nothing unchristian-like about it. There's nothing unchrist-like about it. There are times when, for your mental health, so that you can be all that you're meant to be, you have to do that. And if somebody is mistreating you, abusing you, and all that, you're enabling them if you don't stand up to them in a loving way. And if you have to, there's no reasoning with them, then you may have to cut off contact. But the thing is you don't do it out of revenge or because you're trying to control them or get the upper hand in the situation. You do it because you need to find peace, because you need to find some control in your own life, because you need the space to be able to forgive, because you need to stop hurting and having that wound opened again and again and again and again. I know from experience. I know it hurts. It hurts so much. And it's a soul level thing that if somebody hasn't experienced it, they don't know what it's like. And so you do have to be patient with people who don't understand and who don't know why you're going no contact. Because a lot of times, probably half the time, if you've been neglected, if you've been abused, if you know what a narcissistic or a pathological abuser is, half of the time that stuff is hidden. And even people that are right in your space don't know what's going on, because people can be masters at covering that stuff up and denying it. They literally believe that they're good people, and other people believe that. But you know in many cases that that's not the case. And this isn't about he said, she said, or who's right or who's wrong, but you know in your heart when something just has to give and something has to change. And sometimes this will go on for years and years, and you try to find a way to find some peace, and there is no other way. Let me tell you something. If you have to go no contact, that's okay. Do what you need to do for yourself. Do what you need to do to heal. It's time for you to take care of yourself, because those people didn't. Nobody's under any obligation to you, and you're not under any obligation to them. You are free in Christ. You follow God's leading. You think about how your choices impact other people, but when it's said and done, you do not accept abuse and mistreatment and neglect from other people. You need to differentiate between people who make a lot of mistakes, but they're really trying in the relationship. You might need to give some people a little leeway and a little forgiveness. But that's different than somebody who promises to do things better and then they do the same thing again. They promise to do things better and they do the same thing again. And this has been going on for 5, 10, 20 years. See a pattern? Sound familiar? In those cases, you need to really think about the future of your life, because chances are they won't change. You sit there waiting for God to change them, and maybe He will. But that happens, from my experience, in a small percent of cases. You need to really evaluate if you should be in that relationship or if you should have contact with that person, whether they're a friend or a family member or whatever. But like I said, it's important to differentiate between somebody who's flawed and who's trying to do better, who makes mistakes, and somebody who is calculated and does the same thing again and again and again, and they're just really good at manipulating people. Because on one hand, you can get so paranoid and overreactive that you don't give anybody leeway to be themselves, to make mistakes, to have flaws, to have weaknesses. But then on the other extreme, you allow somebody to step on you, run over you, and all that. You're just enabling that behavior. And cutting off ties, sometimes if you try to ration like reason with that person, if you try to talk to them, if you plead with them, if you beg them, if you threaten them, if you do everything you can and you don't get anywhere, you're not gonna get anywhere. If you can't reason with somebody and they continue to do that to you, either willfully or unconsciously, it's time to consider going no contact. Like I said, there's not a one size fits all, there's not a be all end all, but I'm just putting it out there that sometimes it's okay to do that, and sometimes, in some cases, that's all you can do. And so pray about it. Talk to people you really trust about it. And I've even found that in some cases, the people you really trust may have a different opinion, but only God and you knows what's best for you. Listen to the wise people in your life that you trust. Study scripture, read your books, do your meditations, pray, and find out what your heart is telling you to do, and trust what your heart is telling you to do. That's it for today. Thank you for listening, and I'll be putting out some more videos again sometime soon.